Dear students, in physics, in the section optics, now we'll see another experiment. This experiment is also, we are going to use the spectrometer. It's actually a continuation of the last experiment we did. You remember the last experiment we did before this? We used the spectrometer and we found the prism angle. In that experiment, calibration of spectrometer was the longest procedure. We had to calibrate the telescope, we had to calibrate the collimator, and then we had to calibrate the prism table, right? Even this experiment, here we are going to find the minimum deviation of a prism. Before we start the minimum deviation experiment, we have to calibrate the spectrometer. Since we have done the last experiment with calibration and finding the prism angle, here I am going to assume at this point, the spectrometer has been calibrated. So, we have a spectrometer which is already calibrated. On that calibrated spectrometer, we are going to keep the prism and do this experiment. Remember that. So, actually the full experiment includes calibration of spectrometer and then finding the minimum deviation. Assume that calibration has been already done because it's the continuation of previous experiment, right? Finding the minimum deviation angle. Place the prism on the center of prism table such that face BC is parallel to collimator. Let me explain this to you. This is a light source, this is a collimator, prism table, and this is the telescope. When we start this experiment, already we have calibrated. Now we are going to keep the prism on this table. How do we keep the prism on the table initially? Listen, see, this is our prism table. Let's say this is our collimator. Collimator, let's keep it like this. Right. So, light source is here. That's the light source. From here, we are going to get the parallel rays. We usually use an equilateral prism where the prism angle is going to be 60 degree. So, how you keep the prism is keep it in the center of this table, prism table, such that one face of this prism is parallel to the collimator. See, BC and this collimator are parallel. What happens when we keep it parallel? Let's take one ray from this. A ray coming from here would reach the prism like this. Let me draw the normal. Right, that's a normal. It's an equilateral prism. Then this angle is going to be 60 degree, which means this is also 60. This is 90. What would be this angle? That will be 30 degree. Altogether, it has to be 180, 60, 60, 90. That will be 30 degree. Do you remember when we did the minimum deviation experiment with the optical pins method, the traditional method, without the spectrometer? When I did the experiment, I explained you, when this is 30 degree or less than 30 degree, what will happen? The refracted ray, when it reaches the other surface, see the refracted ray, when it reaches the other surface, the angle it is going to make here, I am talking about this angle, the incident angle on the second surface will be critical angle. It will be close to the critical angle. If this is less than 30 degree, this will be more than the critical angle. What will happen on a glass air surface if the ray reaches at an angle greater than the critical angle? It will not refract, it will not emerge to the other side. Instead, it will get reflected internally. We call it total internal reflection. So, at this point, total internal reflection will happen if this angle is less than 30 degree. This is applicable only for equilateral prism, 60, 60, 60. Therefore, if we want to see the ray on the other side, from this AC surface, if we have to see the emergent ray, this angle has to be above 30 degree. You remember in the minimum deviation curve, we studied a curve like this, I, D. We started the curve somewhere here. We said up to 30 degree, the graph will not exist. Because 0 to 30 degree incident angle on this side, then on the second surface, there will be total internal reflection happening. Understand? That is why we usually say, keep one side of the prism to be parallel to the collimator at the initial step. Remember, this is applicable to equilateral prism, right? Okay. Then what do? We are going to rotate this table little by little like this. Gradually, we will be rotating. You know, the ray doesn't change. The collimator is a fixed component. So, ray doesn't change. When this table is rotated, which means prism is also rotating, this line will get rotated clockwise. That means a normal. When normal is getting rotated clockwise, what will happen to this incident angle? Incident angle will increase. This is what we are going to do in this experiment. Right? Starting with an incident angle approximately 30 degree, and then you rotate the table, which means you rotate the prism such that incident angle increases gradually. You know, when incident angle increases gradually, what will happen? Our deviation decreases. It reaches a minimum point and again it increases. All what we want is this point, at which point it is minimum. This is what we want to find. Let's analyze what happens. Okay, now this ray, it gets refracted. This is how you will see the ray. Right. So, how much would be the deviation? Extend the incident ray, extend this emergent ray backwards. This is what the deviation is. Okay. Now, when you rotate this, remember the incident ray is not going to change. That will be the same. But the refracted rays are going to change. You will not get the same refracted ray again. It is going to change. But initially in this gap, when you are increasing the incident angle, what should happen? Deviation has to decrease. This angle has to decrease. But you know, incident ray doesn't change. If incident ray doesn't change, what should happen to this emergent ray? Emergent ray should move the other side. Why? Then only the deviation will decrease. So, you can observe when you are rotating this table, you can observe clearly the image of the slit will start moving in the opposite direction. That means, when you are rotating the table clockwise, this is clockwise, the image would be moving anti-clockwise. In other words, when I'm observing from here, the image will be moving to my right side, Until which point? Until we go to the minimum point. So, it little by little keeps moving to the right side. Let's say this is the eyepiece. This is the telescope's eyepiece. Through this only you are observing the image of the slit. You will see the crosswire, horizontal crosswire, vertical crosswire. Let's say when you start this, let's say like when you're observing here, the image was this. This is the first image you see. Then when you are slowly rotating this table, you can see this image would go to the right side. It will go there. Then it will go further out. Then it will be completely out from your field. You will not be able to see that. If you can't see that within your telescope, what you have to do, move your telescope. You have your telescope here, right? Move it, turn it a little bit. so that you can see the next one. Likewise, keep tracing that image of the slit, right? Little by little you are rotating this table, then the image is moving to my right. With the image you are moving your telescope also, so that you can see the image. But it will not keep going like that. It will keep moving. Once it reaches the minimum point, when you rotate the table further, for a moment, it doesn't move to any side. It just remains at the same position, and then it will start moving back. That means it will start moving to my left. Why? In this part of graph, you can see deviation has to increase. Then this line would again start moving to my left. Image would be moving to the right side first. It will reach a position where it remains unchanged. It doesn't move to any direction, it just remains at a position. Then again it starts moving to the other direction. You need to locate the point where it remains unchanged. Momentarily it remains unchanged. Find that point. That point will tell us the minimum deviation. Once you have located that point, then bring your telescope such that, okay, let's say, okay, this is the image. It was moving to my right and now it remains constant. It doesn't change. It doesn't move to any direction. Then in the next step, it starts moving to the left. So this is the turning point. At this point, bring your telescope such that your crosswire becomes symmetric like this. You can move your telescope, right? You can either loosen the knob and you can move it manually with your hands. Once you have come to an approximate or rough position, then what you can do, tighten it, and there is this another knob to fine tune it. So little by little you can move it and bring it such that the image coincides with a vertical crosswire. Once you have brought it like this, then you get the reading. I repeat, first you find out the position where the image remains, image doesn't move. It moves to one direction, stops, moves back. It moves to one direction, stops, and it moves back. Find the point where it stops. At that position, fix your prism table. Then don't rotate that further. After you found that position where it takes the turn, stop your prism table. Then adjust your telescope only and bring it like this. The image and the crosswires must be symmetric. At that point, you get the reading. That will be reading number 1. Then what do we do? Just remove this prism, set the telescope to be in line with the collimator. Directly you must be able to see the ray. Get the reading at that point. Reading number 2. Let's say this is the minimum deviation point. So here you got reading 1. Here you got reading 2. If you get the difference between these two readings, that will give you the minimum deviation. The difference between those two readings. This is what we are going to do in this experiment. Clear? So just two readings you are going to take. One is keeping the telescope straight so that you can see the ray directly without the prism. One reading. Other reading, you locate the minimum deviation point. I told you how to find the minimum deviation point. The image moves to one direction. When you are rotating the table, image moves to one direction. At some point, it remains constant. And then it starts moving to the other direction. So find the point where it remains. It remains unchanged. Momentarily it remains unchanged. Even though you are rotating the table, for a moment, at a point, it remains unchanged. Then it starts moving to the other direction. So that unchanged position, find that point and then align your telescope with that. Get the reading. That's the second reading. Get the difference between these two readings. That should give you the minimum deviation. This is all the step it is going to be. Assuming the spectrometer has been already calibrated. Right? If you did not do the calibration, then all those calibration steps have to be done. Then we have to come to this. So here we have already done the calibration. We can do this straight away. Right. So now you understand why we keep BC to be parallel here, so that we can start with 30 degree. Because if you keep it at an incident angle less than that, you will not have the emergent ray on this side. So we will start with 30 degree. Then slowly rotate the prism table such that vertex A of the prism moves away from the collimator. That, what do you mean by away from the collimator? See, I told we'll rotate in clockwise direction, right? Then A would move this way. From the collimator, distance to A is increasing, isn't it? That's what it means. Rotate such that A moves away from the collimator. Observe the image of the slit through the face AC of the prism. When prism table is rotated, initially the image will move on one direction. To be precise, it will move to my right side. If I am rotating the table clockwise, the image should move anti-clockwise. If the image moves out of the telescope's field of view, then move the telescope to trace the image. That you have to do. If it goes outside the circle, you are looking at the image through your eyepiece. Eyepiece is a circle. Outside the circle, if the image has gone, shift your telescope, move your telescope and locate the image. If the image moves out of telescope's field of view, then move the telescope to trace the image. When the prism table is rotated further, it would be seen that the image would stop at a position and then move back to the initial position. Understand? It will move in one direction, stops, and then moves back. This is the point important for me. Right? Turn the telescope until the vertical crosswire coincides with the image of the slit at the position where it stops. That's what I told you here. Okay, if this is where the image has stopped, then adjust your telescope such that this vertical line is symmetric, or the image is symmetric about the vertical line. How about the horizontal line? Would the image be symmetric about the horizontal line? Yes, it will be. If you have already leveled the prism table, the image has to be symmetric about the horizontal crosswire. You don't have to worry about that now. If it is not symmetric about the horizontal crosswire, meaning you have not leveled the table. Clear? Turn the telescope until the vertical crosswire coincides with the image of the slit at the position where it stops. Get the reading of the scale at this position. Get the reading. That's the minimum deviation reading. Then what do we do? Now remove the prism from the table and turn the telescope to be in line with the collimator. After coinciding the vertical crosswire with the image of the slit, get the reading on this scale. So that's the second reading. Without the prism, straight you align the collimator and the telescope, get the reading number 2. The difference between those two readings, say the minimum deviation will be the difference between R1 and R2. But you have to be careful if you are going across 0 point, 360 point, then I told you in the previous experiments also, if we cross 360, then when you are getting the difference, how we have to get it, I showed you. Here also in a question, I will show you after the experiment, I will take a question and show you what happens. Anyway, the difference between R1 and R2 would give us the minimum deviation. Shall we see how to do this experiment now? Dear students, in this practical, we are going to see how to find the minimum deviation for a prism using the spectrometer. In the previous practical, in the previous experiment, we saw how to find the prism angle using a spectrometer. So with the same apparatus, with a similar approach, but this time we are going to use the refraction of light through the prism and find out the minimum deviation. So we will see how to do it now. So the apparatus required for this experiment, primarily we need this spectrometer. This is the main one in this practical. And then we use this sodium lamp as the light source. I'll explain you later why we use sodium lamp, why not just the bulb, why particularly sodium lamp, I will explain. Then we use a prism. We are going to use the prism angle of this prism, and to get the readings, we have verniers here. To get the readings more clearly, we can use a magnifying lens or hand lens. This is all the apparatus we use in this practical. First thing in this practical, you need to understand how to fine tune this spectrometer. The first thing you have to do in doing this experiment, we have to calibrate this spectrometer. It has lot of different parts. We need to see how to calibrate each of them individually. That itself is a lengthy process, calibrating this spectrometer. If you do not calibrate it properly, your readings, your findings will not be accurate. So, let us see what are the parts of this spectrometer and how to calibrate each of them. See, we have this piece here which is fixed, which cannot be rotated. You can see this one. So, this piece is what we call collimator of a spectrometer. Later I will explain you what is the function of it, but just know the name collimator. So, we have this other piece which is a telescope. See, you can rotate this, and we have another piece here, we call it prism table. We can rotate the prism table also. So, there are two parts of this spectrometer which can be rotated. One is this prism table, one is this telescope, and we have a collimator which is fixed, which cannot be rotated. So, when we are calibrating the spectrometer, first thing we calibrate the telescope. We have two pieces in this telescope. This one we call eyepiece. We will keep our eye here, and from this end only we will be observing. I will show you the eyepiece. See, this eyepiece can be adjusted forward and backward like this. You can see here. You can push it in, you can push it out. It can be adjusted forward and backward. I will take it out and show you. See, you can take it like this, but when you are doing this experiment in the lab, you should not take it like this. But here, just for you to make it clear, I am showing it. You can see there is a lens here. Through this lens only, we are going to watch. We are going to observe the image of the light source through this lens. So, this lens is what we call eyepiece. Let us fix it back here. So, how do we calibrate this eyepiece? You have to look into the eyepiece and ensure you see a crosswire clearly. And that crosswire, you have to have one line vertically and another line horizontally. For that, you can rotate it like this. You can rotate it. Right? By rotating, you have to bring one line or one wire of the crosswire vertically and another wire horizontally. Also, you have to make sure you can see the crosswire clearly. So, let me first calibrate the eyepiece of the telescope. Now, I can see the crosswire, but the crosswire is not vertical and horizontal, it is in a different angle. So, let me rotate this and bring the crosswire to have one line vertically and another line horizontally. There you go, you can see the crosswire clearly from this side, which means your eyepiece of the telescope has been calibrated. Once you have calibrated that, you can go to calibrate the objective or object piece of this telescope. And one more thing I have to tell you, when you are calibrating this eyepiece, do not look into the crosswire continuously, because if you are looking at it continuously, sometimes you might not be very sure which point is the precise image of it. So, what we usually do, we look into that and we look outside, look into that, look outside. Alternatively, you have to do it to make sure you do not get a wrong position as the clear crosswire. So, you have to look inside and then look out, look inside, look out. You have to alternatively do it and adjust it until you get a clear crosswire in the right orientation. Once you have calibrated the eyepiece, you should not touch that eyepiece again. Now I am going to calibrate the object piece or objective. Once you have calibrated that also, you should not adjust any of this. Okay, what are we going to calibrate here? We have to ensure when it receives parallel lines, the image from that parallel line coincides with the crosswire. The image that we get from the parallel line have to fall on the crosswire. So how do we do that? First of all, understand how do we get parallel lines. If you can look at some object at far distance from you, that you can assume to be a parallel line. So what we usually do when we do this practical, we turn this, and through the window, if you have a window nearby, through the window you look at an object which is outside, maybe a tree. So when you look outside, you can see an inverted image of the tree. Initially it may not be very clear. Then you have to adjust with this knob. You can see this knob. With this knob you can adjust it and get a clear image on the crosswire. So let me look at the tree now through the window I have. I can see the image, an inverted image of a tree, but it is not clear. So let me adjust this knob. You can see this knob. You can adjust it. And make sure you get a clear image of the tree that I am looking at. It is an inverted image. Good. Now I have got the clear image on the crosswire, clear image of a tree. Why did we look at a tree at far distance? I wanted to get parallel rays. So now the object piece has been calibrated to receive the parallel rays and give us the image on the crosswire. With this step, we have done the calibration of the telescope. Eyepiece has been calibrated and the object piece also has been calibrated. Now we are done with the calibration of telescope. Now we will go to the collimator. First understand what is the function of this collimator. Collimator is there to provide us with parallel rays. So how do we generate parallel rays from this collimator? We keep the light source here in this end. The light source will be kept here. From the light source we get rays, and then you have a lens inside. If you can keep the light source right at the focal point of the lens will give us parallel rays on the other side. That is a simple function of a collimator. To calibrate the collimator, there are two things that we have to calibrate. First one, you can see here we have a slit. Here we have a slit. Through this slit only the light comes in. You can see the knob here. I can rotate this knob and adjust the width of slit that you have here. See, now when I rotate it this way, you can see the width of slit reduces. It reduces. It reduces. It reduces. Similarly, when I rotate it the other way, again you can increase the width of it. Again you can increase the width of it. So by this way you can adjust the width of slit and you can get a sharp and bright image from the slit. To do this practical, to do this experiment, you need a bright and sharp image. It should not be too wide, because if it is too wide, then the readings and your findings will not be accurate. So we need to have a narrow, bright and sharp image we have to get from this slit. So that is one adjustment you have to do it here. Second adjustment, we have to adjust this knob to ensure that we get parallel lines. So let me show you how we adjust the slit, how we get the parallel lines with the sodium lamp. So I am going to keep the sodium lamp on this end as the light source, and we are going to observe the image of the sodium lamp through the slit from this side. So now the question arises, why are we using sodium lamp? Why not just the white light? You must understand, we are going to keep a prism here And for the second part of this experiment, we are going to see the refracted rays through the prism. So, if you use white light, the components of white light, that means each color will get refracted by different angles. Then I will be able to see a spectrum from this side. Finding the minimum deviation will be difficult if you see the spectrum. So, what we do, we use sodium lamp to provide us with a single color light, which will be yellow light, which is easy to observe, a yellow light, so that we can avoid this diffraction, we can avoid this spectrum being seen in this side. Since it is only single color, you can see a single ray coming in this side. This is only applicable for practical with refraction, not for reflection. Right? So, that is why we are using sodium lamp as the light source. So, now let me show you how to keep the sodium lamp and calibrate the collimator. So, now you can see I have kept the sodium lamp here, and I am going to adjust this knob to get the width of the slit as I want it, right. So, first what we will do, we will observe the slit from this end and adjust it according to the width that I require. In this experiment, what we usually say, we need to get a thin, sharp and bright image when we observe it from this end. So, let's do that first. Right, I have adjusted the width of it. As I told you previously, suppose if the slit is not vertical, make sure you adjust it and get a vertical image of the slit from this end. We need to have a vertical image. Now, I have calibrated this part of the collimator. What is the next step? I have to ensure it provides us with parallel beam to this end. I have already calibrated the telescope. Now, the telescope, if it receives the parallel rays, we know the image from that parallel ray will fall exactly on the cross wire, because we have calibrated this accordingly. Now, let me keep it to be collinear with the collimator and see whether I can get the image of the slit on the cross wire. Why? If it gives the parallel beams, then the image from the parallel beam has to be on the cross wire. I need to see the image of the slit exactly on the cross wire. If we do not get it, what we have to do? We have to adjust this knob and get it like that. Why? If we can get this lens and this light source such that the light source is located exactly at the focal point of the lens, then the lens will be emitting parallel rays on the other end. So, that is what we are going to see now. Now, I can see the image of the slit, but it is not clear. It is not clear means we are not getting the parallel rays in this side. Let me adjust it with this knob. I think the width also can be reduced further to get a more sharp image. So, let me adjust the other knob again to get a more sharper image of the slit. Now, let me adjust this knob to ensure I get a clear image of the slit exactly on the cross wire. Right. Now, as you see, I have got a clear image of this light source. I have got a clear sharp image of the slit to coincide with the cross wire of this eye lens, which means now the collimator has also been calibrated. Collimator receives this light from the light source, which is the sodium lamp, and it gives us parallel rays in this side. So, now we have calibrated the telescope and the collimator. What is the next step? Next step is leveling the prism table. This is what we call prism table. We have to level the prism table. There is one thing you have to note here. We are not trying to make it horizontal. We say we are going to make it leveled. What's the meaning of leveling? You know, the ray comes through this collimator and this prism table. Both have to be in the parallel planes. Suppose if this prism table is in one angle and the rays we are getting is in different angle, then our readings and findings will not be accurate. So, we have to adjust this table such that the table's plane becomes parallel to the ray's plane. Let us see how we are going to do it. For that, children, we have to keep this prism on the prism table first. So, let us have a look at this prism. This prism has three sides of this triangle, right? So, when I keep it here, you know, on the prism table we have three screws, screw 1, screw 2, screw 3. We have three screws. You can choose any two screws and draw a line connecting them, draw a straight line connecting them. Then you have to keep this prism such that one side, whichever the side, one side has to be perpendicular to the connecting line. Which is the connecting line? Suppose if I am considering these two screws, this is the line connecting the screws. I am going to keep this prism such that one side of it is perpendicular to the line connecting two screws. And there is one more thing, the vertex. One vertex of this prism has to be exactly in the middle of the prism table. Exactly in the middle of the prism table. Usually, in the spectrometers that you find in your physics lab, the line between two screws and a perpendicular will also be drawn there. You can see that. Then placing the prism accordingly is not a tough task for you. So, keep the prism such that one side of the prism is perpendicular to the line connecting two screws. Point number 1. Point number 2, one vertex of the prism has to be exactly in the middle of this table. Once you have done like that, then adjust this prism table such that the two sides that you are going to use for reflection, are kept symmetrically to this parallel line. So, when I say the two sides that you are going to use for reflection, understand one side of this prism is blurred, meaning there wouldn't be any reflection or refraction happening in that side. Now, I will show you students, you can see this side is very clear side, reflection, refraction, everything is possible. But look at the other side, you can see this side is not clear as the previous one. This is the blurred side, which means in this side there won't be any refraction or reflection happening. Similarly, the third side is also a clear one. You can see the third side is also clear. So, when you keep the prism symmetrically, make sure you keep the two sides which the reflection can happen to be here such that the incident rays can fall on them and get reflected on both sides. This is how you place the prism. Now, what do we do? You can understand, we have studied that in theory. The incident rays from this collimator will fall on these two sides and they will be reflected, not the refracted rays. I am talking about reflected rays. It will be reflected on both sides. So, I am going to observe those reflected rays from both sides. So, first let me look at that without the telescope. Once I have found the approximate location of it, then let me take the telescope and find it.
At this point, I can see the image of the slit, not very clear though. Let's take the telescope. Right, I can see a clear, sharp image of the slit. But there is a problem with the image. The image is not symmetrical about the crosswire. Meaning what? In the crosswire, there is a horizontal wire, horizontal line. So, the image of the slit I am getting has to be symmetrical about that horizontal wire. That means, half of the image has to be below the horizontal line and half of the image has to be above the horizontal line. But what I am getting now is not like that. I am getting major part of the image below the horizontal line. That is because this table is not leveled. So, we are going to level this table. There is a process in leveling this table. I have already shown you there are 3 screws. When I am observing from this side, that is the first observation I am getting. Then I have to adjust these 2 screws. You can see these 2 screws will be adjusted. I will not be touching the other screw. What technically we are doing here, first getting these 2 points at the same level, bringing them to be at the same level, right? Then what do? Take this telescope to the other side, we will observe the ray from the other end and then adjust the 3rd screw. So, once you have leveled these 2 screws, you will not be touching them again. Once you go to the other side, only the 3rd screw has to be adjusted to bring this table to a level. So, what basically we are doing, first these 2 screws, that means the screws, these 2 screws you are bringing them leveled. The other one might not be leveled, that might be lower or higher. Then what you do, by adjusting that, you are bringing that also to the level of these 2, right? So, that is the process. Now, let me observe the image from this end and ensure that it is adjusted to be symmetric about the horizontal line of the crosswire. When we are adjusting these 2 screws, there is one more thing you need to understand. We do not rotate both screws in the same direction, because if you rotate both screws in the same direction, then the angle remains the same. They both together go up or go down. So, usually what do? We rotate them in opposite directions. If one is rotated clockwise, other one has to be rotated anti-clockwise. You rotate them in opposite directions until you get a image that is symmetric about the horizontal line. Now, I have got a symmetric image. That means these 2 points have been aligned to be in the same line or same plane. Now, what do? Let us observe the reflected ray from the other end and adjust this screw. In this side also I can see the image, but it is not balanced. You do not see half as I explained earlier. So, the 3rd screw has to be adjusted such that you get it symmetrically about the horizontal line of the crosswire. Good. Now, I have got it symmetrically, which means now the prism table is leveled. The plane of the prism table and the line of which the ray travels are parallel. Now, we can continue with the rest of the practical steps. So, understand all the steps that we have done so far is to calibrate this instrument, right? We calibrated the telescope, we calibrated the collimator, and now we have calibrated or we have leveled the prism table. Once you have done these three perfectly, then only you can enter into the next steps of the experiment. If you have not done these steps correctly, if the calibration part is not done properly, the readings you get and the findings you get will not be accurate. So now we have finished calibrating the spectrometer. We have calibrated the telescope, we have calibrated the collimator, and we have leveled the table. Let's keep the prism on the table now. So this time understand, we are going to use the refraction of light and find minimum deviation. So out of the three sides, I told you already in the previous experiment, that is when we were finding the prism angle, I showed you one side of the prism is shaded or it's blurred, it's not very clear. So there won't be any refraction happening in that side. The other two sides are clear. This side is very clear, which means refraction, reflection, everything is possible. The other side is also very clear. You can see this side is also very clear. So when we are keeping the prism, how we keep it? You keep it such that the blurred or shaded side has to be on my left side, such that the clear sides are here, which means the incidence side, the incidence ray should reach a clear side, and then it gets refracted inside the prism. Again it gets refracted and the emergent ray would come out. So the point of incidence and the point of emergence both have to be on clear sides. So make sure you keep the blurred side on the other side and keep these two clear sides for the refraction. Now what will happen? The parallel rays coming from the collimator will get refracted at this point, and again it will get refracted at this point, and it will emerge on the other side. So if I did not have this prism here, the rays would have come directly here, directly. Because I have the prism, what will happen? It will get refracted and this is how they will come out. This is how they will come out. So this is the original path. Now they get refracted to a different path. The difference in angle between these two paths is what we call deviation, angle of deviation. The straight line path of the ray and the refracted path of the ray, the emergent ray goes in a different path. Angle between two paths is what we call the angle of deviation. That is what we are going to measure. And also we studied when the angle of incidence changes, the angle of deviation changes accordingly. So that behavior we are going to analyze in this experiment. So first what we will do, let's keep the prism as I explained previously, and we will find out where the refracted ray comes on this side. So initially you don't need the telescope, you can check the refracted ray, that means the image of the slit with your bare eyes, naked eyes, and then with the telescope you can check that to get the accurate readings. I can see the image at this point. So let me take the telescope and get the clearer image of the slit. Right. Now I can see the image of the slit coincides with the vertical line of the crosswire. So now understand the line or the ray that has come directly, which would have travelled directly if this prism was not there. Now it has refracted because of the prism and it has gone in this path. So the angle of deviation is this much. Right. So now we have found the angle of deviation. But we don't want this angle of deviation. What we want, see, in theory we studied when the angle of incidence increases, initially angle of deviation will drop. It will keep reducing until a point after which again angle of deviation will increase. So there is a point where the angle of deviation is minimum. Angle of deviation is minimum. We need to find it. So in this prism now, where do we find angle of incidence? You know, in this side only the point of incidence is. The incidence ray, the point of incidence is here. So we will draw the normal to the surface. That's how the normal will be. And then this is the path of the line, path of the ray. Can you see the incident ray? This is how it comes. So this is the normal, this is the incident ray. So you can understand the angle between these two directions is what you call, the angle between these two directions is what you call the angle of incidence. Now what I want to do, I want to increase the angle of incidence. In theory, what did we do? To increase the angle of incidence, we took different incident rays. We drew different lines at different incident angles. But here the incident ray cannot be changed because this is the light source for us and the incident ray always comes through the collimator. So I cannot change the incident ray. So if you can't change the incident ray, still if you want to increase the angle of incidence, then what you can do is change the normal line. How do you change the normal line? I'm going to rotate this. How do I rotate? Look at this again. This is the normal. This is the normal. This is the incident. Incident cannot be changed. Incident ray will not be changed. Keep it fixed. So if you want to increase the angle, what do you do? Change the normal this way, which means the normal is getting rotated clockwise. How do I rotate the normal clockwise? I have to rotate this prism table clockwise. So little by little, I'm going to rotate this prism table clockwise in order to increase the angle of incidence. First, understand that concept, how to increase the angle of incidence. Rotate the prism table such that the normal gets rotated, where the line of incidence remains the same, such that angle of incidence increases. Right. So now I'm going to rotate this little by little and I'm going to observe what happens to the image. If you remember the theory, you know, initially when the angle of incidence increases, the deviation has to reduce. You know, this is the deviation. This is the deviation. If deviation has to reduce, this line has to come further this way. Which means my image of the slit has to rotate anti-clockwise. Then only, because you have the straight line here, if this rotates anti-clockwise, then only the deviation will reduce. So when I rotate this prism table clockwise, my image of the slit has to rotate anti-clockwise until a point. There is a minimum point. After it reaches the minimum point, after it reaches the minimum deviation, again it will start increasing. So I need to find that point, until which point it keeps rotating anti-clockwise direction and it starts turning in the other direction. That is what we are going to check now. So let me observe the image through the telescope and slowly, very slowly, let's rotate the prism table in clockwise direction. I can see the image clearly. Let's rotate it slowly. I'm rotating it slowly clockwise. I can see my image is moving to my right, which means it's moving anti-clockwise direction. Now it has gone out of my sight. That means the image has rotated anti-clockwise further such that I can't see it through my telescope. So what do? I have to adjust my telescope also to the anti-clock direction to see the image. So let's adjust this a little bit. Yes, I can see the image now. Let's rotate it further. Image is moving to the right, moving to the right. It keeps on moving. There you go. At that point, it started moving to the left again. Let me repeat this. Let me repeat this. You all can see that. See, at this point, see, I am increasing the angle of incidence. I am rotating the table clockwise. Table clockwise. Then image is going to the right. At this point, image stops and starts turning to the left. So now I have found out where the image starts turning to the clockwise direction. But there is one more thing I had to find out. That minimum deviation point, at that point, image has to be aligned with the vertical line of the crosswire. But here it happened. That means the image was turning to the right side, and it at some point it started turning to the left. So that change happened at a point which is not the vertical line of the crosswire. So now what I should do, I should adjust this table with minute changes, right? With part of a degree, I have to little by little adjust it such that that minimum point aligns with the vertical line of the crosswire. So let's check that again. Right. This is the minimum point of the image. Right. So this is the minimum deviation point. I need to align the crosswire. I need to align the crosswire. Still there is a gap between the vertical line and the image. So let's do this fine tuning with this one. You can see when I rotate this, it gets adjusted little by little, the fine tuning knob, and then it gets aligned. Make sure when you use this knob is fully tightened. If you don't tighten this knob, then you can't adjust it with this knob. So this knob is fully tightened. With this knob, I am adjusting it. Yes, now the image and the vertical line have been aligned. So what did we do? We found out until which point the image was rotating anti-clockwise, and then the point where it started turning to the other side. So that turning point and my crosswire vertical line have to be aligned. Now I have aligned it. So this indicates now the minimum deviation point. Let's get the reading for this minimum deviation point. You need to understand, to get the minimum deviation point, you can have the reading from one vernier itself. You don't need to have both verniers. But we usually take the reading from both verniers. We do the calculation from both verniers, and we get the average in order to minimize the reading errors if we have any. I have explained this in the previous experiment also, where we found the prism angle, right? So in the similar way, let's find the readings, or let's get the readings of each vernier individually. Let's use the hand lens or magnifying lens to get the readings. Vernier 1 reading. Students, you can see the reading. The main scale is 328 degree, and then you see where the vernier is matching with the main scale. Vernier 20 is matching with the main scale. Vernier scale 20 is matching with the main scale line. Therefore, the reading must be 328 degree and 20 minutes. 328 degree and 20 minutes. And vernier 2 reading. Students, you can see the main scale reading is 148.5. Actually, the verniers 0 is perfectly matching with 148.5 main scale. Therefore, the reading has to be 148.5 degrees.
which means 148 degree, 0.5 means it's 30 minutes, right? So 148 degree and 30 minutes it must be.
Let's write down these readings on our paper. So the reading we have got in vernier 1 is 328 degree and 20 minutes. 328 degree and 20 minutes. And in the other vernier, second vernier, the reading we have got is 148 degree and 30 minutes. 148 degree and 30 minutes. Right. So now we have got the reading for minimum deviation. Then what do? We need to get the reading for the straight line. Without deviation, what is the reading? We need to get that, the difference between the straight line reading and the minimum deviation reading. That will give us how much is the minimum deviation angle. For that, let me remove the prism, bring the telescope to be collinear with the collimator. Make sure the image coincides with the vertical line of your crosswire. It is coinciding now. Yes. At this point, let's get the reading. Let's get the reading. Vernier 1.
Students, now you can see the main scale 5.5. 5.5 is exactly matching with vernier's 0, isn't it? So we can say the reading at this position is 5.5 degrees, which means 5 degrees and 30 minutes.
And vernier 2 readings.
In this vernier, now you can see the main scale 185.5 is passed. Yeah, 185.5 is the reading from the main scale. In the vernier scale, you can see 10th scale is matching. It's aligned with the line on the main scale. So 185.5, that means 185 and 30 minutes in the main scale, 10 minutes in the vernier scale. So altogether 185 degrees and 40 minutes is the reading. 185 minutes and 185 degrees and 40 minutes.
Now we can write down these readings, get the difference. That will give us the minimum deviation. We have already found the prism angle in the previous experiment. Using prism angle and minimum deviation angle, we can calculate the refractive index of this prism. So let's see how to calculate that. Now the reading we have got without any refraction, the straight path of the ray, the reading we have got 5 degree and 30 minutes. And in vernier 2, we have got 185 degree and 40 minutes. 185 degree.
Okay, the readings that we have got, I have written on the table here. When the prism was at minimum deviation in vernier 1 and vernier 2, those are the readings. When the telescope was in line with collimator, those are the readings. Actually, you can do with one vernier scale itself, but we are doing with both verniers. Suppose if there is an error in reading, not while doing the experiment. If you made a mistake while doing the experiment, that is a mistake. This wouldn't rectify that. But getting the reading, sometimes, getting the vernier scale readings, you might make mistakes. To rectify that, we are taking the reading from both verniers. Minimum deviation angle. With the vernier 1, when we are doing, you can understand from 328.20, we have gone to 5 degree. Obviously, we have gone crossing 0, right? Like this. 328.20 would be somewhere here, right? 270, 328.20. Right? 5 degree is going to be after 0. So, when you are getting the difference, this difference you have to take separately, this you have to take separately. Add them together. So, let me write that here. 328 from 360 we have to subtract it. 360 minus 328 20 plus 5 degree 30 minutes. This will be, if I take it as 329, then we have 3140, 530, 36, 70, that is 37 degree and 10 minutes we have here. How about here? 40, 30, 10 minutes, 37. In both vernier readings, we are getting the same answer. Then even if you get the average, is going to be same. Average minimum deviation angle, average of these two, it's anyway the same, 37 degrees, 10 minutes. The refractive index of the prism, n equals sine a plus d by 2 divided by sine a by 2. Sine A we have got 60 degree and 5 minutes. In the previous experiment we got A 60 degree and 5 minutes. D is 3710 by 2. Sine 60 degree 5 minutes by 2. This is 9715. 9715 divided by 2 will be 48. 48, 97, 97, 15, 48, then you have 75, when you divide that by 2, it will be 37.5, let's say 38 minutes, divided by sine 30 degrees, 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Use the sine tables and get the approximate values of these sines. So you can use the sine table and get this answer. You get 1.50, 1.50. Is the answer you are getting. That is exactly the same theoretical value we have. The refractive index of glass is 1.50. We get the same answer. Right? Now we will see a past paper question on this. It's a very easy experiment. If you know the calibration, calibration is the lengthiest part. If you have done the calibration, then getting the minimum deviation is so simple with a spectrometer. Right? Okay. Take it down. Now we will see a past paper question and see. This is a question that has come in 1998. Quite an old paper. The diagram shows the arrangement of a spectrometer. Here S is a single color light source. Name the parts A, B, C and D. So easy, so easy. A is what you call eyepiece. Eyepiece. B is what you call telescope. C is the collimator. And D is the prism table. Prism table. What are the calibration steps before using the spectrometer for any reading? Don't need of detailed steps. So briefly we are going to say A is which one? Eyepiece, right? So you have to, what is the main calibration we do in eyepiece? Make sure you can see the crosswire clearly. Calibrate it to see the crosswire clearly. B is the telescope. What adjustment, what calibration we do on telescope? To receive parallel rays. To receive parallel rays. Calibrate it to receive parallel rays. They asked us to briefly explain it, right? So you don't have to go into details, just say to receive parallel rays. C is the collimator, to give us the parallel rays. To give parallel rays. From the light source will be giving divergent rays. The collimator has to make it into parallel rays and give it on the other side. D is the prism table, to level the prism table. To level the prism table. Don't say to level it horizontally. It doesn't have to be horizontal. I explained that earlier. Level it. Level it. That's what we say. Leveling means with the same plane of the rays. With the same plane of where the collimator rotates. Where the telescope rotates. Right? In that plane or parallel to that plane, you have to bring the prism table. State the steps in measuring the minimum deviation angle of a prism. There are two steps, right? One is without the prism, just align the telescope and collimator, get the reading, then minimum deviation reading. At minimum deviation, coincide the cross wires with the image of slit and get the reading. That is one. Second one, set the telescope to be in line with collimator and get the reading. That's all we do. That's all. Next, explain how you would identify the position at which the deviation angle is minimum. How do you identify the minimum deviation point? You have to explain when you rotate the prism table, the image moves to one direction, stops and it returns. The point where it stops is the minimum deviation. When incident angle is increased gradually, the image of the slit moves in one direction, stops and returns. Or you can say stops and moves in the opposite direction. The point at which it stops is the minimum deviation point. Easy. Next, the reading was 3 degrees 16 minutes at the minimum deviation position. It was 223 degrees and 46 minutes when B and C were in line. Calculate the minimum deviation angle. See, if this is your scale, you don't have to draw this for the exam, just for you to understand. 223. So, if I take 0 here, 270 will be here, 180 is here, 223. 46 minutes. 3 degrees 16 minutes would be here. Now, should I take this angle or the other angle? The deviation cannot be beyond 180 degree. It has to be less than 180 degree, which means this is the deviation. If that is the deviation, understand it goes across 0. Yes. Then we can say deviation 360 minus 223, 46 plus 3 degrees 16 minutes. That will be 136, 14, 136, 14 plus 3 degrees 16 minutes. That is 139, 30. That's what the minimum deviation is. Next, the deviation D versus incident angle I graph. So simple. That's how it is. Make sure you don't start from here. You give some gap. Why? It's an equilateral prism. 0 to 30 degree, we will not have emergent ray. The graph doesn't exist for an eye less than 30 degree. So you have to start from 30 degree and there has to be a minimum. If you want, you can mark this point as D. Capital D, minimum deviation. Shows the image of the slit when S is a sodium lamp that emits yellow light. When this light source was replaced with another one without changing the positions, 4 images were seen due to the dispersion of yellow, blue, red and green colors. Draw the relative positions of these 4 images in diagram and name them. If we are not using a monocolor, single color light source, there will be spectrum, there will be dispersion of components. Since yellow was already here, even now yellow should be here. Problem is, where would the others be? Blue, red and green. You know the order. Vibgyor, Y-O-R. We are talking about blue, green, yellow and red. So obviously red has to be on one side. If I say this is red, then green will be here. Green, blue will be here. Blue, green, yellow, red. In that order it has to come. In this exam, they give marks even if you have interchanged. Let's say you have written red on this side, green and blue on the other side. Whichever the order. Either you have to write it B, G, Y, R order or R, Y, G, B order. Both were given marks. But you had to ensure the one on the crossfire has to be yellow. Because for yellow already we have set the crossfire such that yellow light's image coincides with the vertical line, vertical crossfire. So yellow has to be there. Others can be on either side. Make sure you maintain the order. If a white light source is used for S, what would you observe through B? You will observe a spectrum, a pure spectrum, a spectrum. Right, that's what you would observe on the other side, because white light means there will be all 7 components of light. If all 7 components are there, you call it a spectrum, right? A pure spectrum, right? The one we had in the previous one is also a spectrum, but not a pure spectrum because we didn't have all 7 colors, right? If you are using a white light source, then white light will have all 7 colors. What would be a usual white light source? The tungsten light. The tungsten light is a good example of white light source. It has all 7 components in it. Clear? So, such a very simple experiment. Questions cannot be too complicated. Calibration part is there. Then apart from the calibration part, this experiment, getting the readings, calculations will be quite simple. This is a sort of question you can get in your exam. Practice all this and we'll meet up again with another experiment.